The gunshot echoed once, sharp and final, then vanished into the canyon like it had never existed. Dust lifted from the ground as the man stumbled forward, his boot catching on a stone slick with blood. He fell hard, the world tilting, sky and earth trading places. Above him, the sun burned without mercy. Beside him, his dog barked, panicked, desperate, circling, whining, refusing to leave. The man pressed his palm to his side and felt warmth pour through his fingers. He knew that feeling. He had felt it before, years ago, on a battlefield far from this empty stretch of land. He exhaled slowly and whispered, barely audible, "This is where it ends." The frontier did not care who you were or what you had lost. After the war, men like him drifted west with promises rattling in their heads. Land, freedom, a new beginning. What they found instead was silence, lawlessness, and a kind of loneliness that crept into the bones. Towns were scattered and thin. Help was never close, and mercy was rarer than rain. His name was Elias Crow, though few living souls knew it anymore. Once, he had been a scout for the army, eyes sharp, instincts honed by blood and smoke. Once, he had believed survival meant something. Now, he lay bleeding beneath an open sky, wondering if surviving had only delayed the inevitable. The wound in his side burned with each breath, the bullet lodged somewhere deep. Every inhale felt like dragging glass into his lungs. His dog, an old cattle mutt with one torn ear and loyal eyes, pressed close, licking his hand, then his face, as if stubborn devotion alone could pull him back from the edge. Elias tried to smile, but failed. He remembered finding the dog half dead near a burned-out homestead months earlier. They had saved each other since then, or maybe they had simply learned how to endure together. The heat was relentless. Flies gathered. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk circled, patient. Elias rolled onto his back and stared at the sky, memories bleeding in with the pain. His wife's laughter, a small house that never got finished, a letter that came too late. He had walked away from graves with a rifle in his hands and guilt in his chest, believing motion could outrun memory. It never did. A dry wind swept through the canyon, carrying the scent of dust and iron. His vision blurred at the edges. He knew the signs. He had watched men die like this, slow, quiet, with nothing heroic about it. His fingers slackened. The dog barked again, louder this time, hackles raised. Footsteps. Elias stiffened, forcing his eyes open. A shadow stretched across him, long and angular, blocking the sun. He reached weakly for his revolver, but his arm refused to obey. The dog growled low, stepping between Elias and the figure. The man standing over him was not a lawman. That much was clear immediately. His coat was worn and dust-stained, his face half hidden beneath the brim of a hat pulled low. A rifle rested easily in his hands, not raised, not lowered, ready. There was no hesitation in his posture, no fear, only calculation. Elias laughed, a dry, broken sound. Figures, he muttered. Of all the ways to die, this felt almost fitting. The stranger studied him in silence. His eyes flicked to the blood soaking the dirt, then to the trembling hand near the revolver. The dog snarled, teeth bared. Seconds stretched thin. Elias closed his eyes, waiting for the shot. It didn't come. Instead, there was movement. The stranger crouched, slow and deliberate, never taking his eyes off the dog. He reached into his coat and pulled out a canteen, setting it on the ground just out of reach. The dog hesitated, confused. "Easy," the man said quietly, not to Elias, but to the dog. The voice was rough, worn by years of smoke and shouting. Not cruel, not kind, just real. Elias forced his eyes open again. "If you're going to do it," he whispered, "do it." The stranger ignored him. He took out a knife, clean and sharp, and cut a strip from his own sleeve. Then, without ceremony, he pressed it hard against Elias's wound. Pain exploded white-hot, ripping a scream from Elias's throat. The dog barked wildly. "Hold him," the man snapped. Elias felt hands, strong, steady, pin him as pressure tightened. He thrashed weakly, vision swimming, then collapsed back into the dirt, gasping. The stranger tied the cloth tight, efficient, practiced. "Bullet passed clean," he said after a moment. "You're lucky." Lucky. The word felt foreign. "Why?" Elias croaked. The man didn't answer. He stood, scanning the horizon, alert. Somewhere far off, a howl rose, low, hungry. Wolves. The stranger lifted his rifle and fired once into the distance. The sound scattered the silence. Elias drank greedily from the canteen when it was finally pressed to his lips. Water spilled down his chin, cool and life-giving. He coughed, then laughed weakly. "You're a bandit," he said, more statement than question. He'd seen the signs, the way the man moved, the lack of insignia, the scar peeking from beneath his collar. The stranger met his gaze. "And you're not dead," he replied. As the sun dipped lower and the shadows lengthened, the stranger built a small fire, shielding the flame from the wind. He said nothing more. No names, no explanations, just actions. He fed the dog first, then Elias. He stayed awake while Elias drifted in and out, fighting fever and memories. That night, as the cold crept in and the wolves kept their distance, Elias realized something that unsettled him more than the pain. He had expected to die alone in this place. He had made peace with that. He had not expected salvation to arrive wearing the face of the man everyone feared. Elias woke to the smell of smoke and damp earth. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Pain anchored him back in his body, deep, pulsing, but no longer sharp enough to steal his breath. He opened his eyes slowly. The canyon walls glowed faintly in the early morning light, shadows stretching like long fingers across the ground. The bandit was already awake. He sat a short distance from the fire, back straight, rifle resting across his knees. He hadn't slept much. Elias could see that in the man's eyes, but there was no weakness there. Only vigilance, the kind that never turned off. The dog lifted its head when Elias stirred, tail thumping weakly against the dirt. Elias managed a shallow smile and whispered its name. The bandit glanced over, then looked away again, as if acknowledging the moment without intruding on it. "Don't move too fast," the man said. "You'll tear it open." Elias obeyed. He swallowed, throat dry. "You could have taken my gun. My boots. Left me." The bandit shrugged. "Could've." Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just heavy. They moved slowly once the sun climbed higher. Elias leaned on a makeshift walking stick the bandit had carved during the night. Every step sent a reminder through his side, but the bleeding had stopped. The bandit walked ahead, always scanning, always listening. When they rested, he checked the bandage without being asked, tightening it once when Elias nearly passed out from the pain. They spoke little. Words felt unnecessary. Elias learned more from what the man didn't do, didn't rush, didn't waste motion, didn't complain. He treated the dog with the same quiet respect, offering water, never startling it. The dog, wary at first, began to follow him willingly. By midday, the sky darkened without warning. Wind rolled down from the hills, sharp and cold. Elias smelled rain before he felt it. They didn't make it to shelter in time. The storm hit hard. Rain fell in sheets, turning dust to mud in seconds. Thunder cracked overhead, close enough to shake the ground. Elias slipped once, then again his strength fading fast. The bandit caught him by the arm before he could fall, holding him upright without a word. They found a narrow rock overhang just as the rain turned brutal. The dog pressed between them, trembling. Elias slumped against the stone, teeth chattering. His vision swam, fever creeping back in. The bandit built another fire, somehow, using dry tinder pulled from inside his coat. He wrapped Elias in his own blanket, then sat close enough to block the wind. Not touching, just there. Elias stared at the flames. "You ever think about stopping?" he asked quietly. The bandit didn't answer right away. Rain drummed against the rock like distant gunfire. Finally, he said, "Stopping gets you killed." That was all. The storm passed as quickly as it came, leaving the land washed raw and steaming. They moved again, slower now. Elias stumbled near a river crossing, his foot slipping on wet stone. The current grabbed him instantly, cold and violent. The dog barked as Elias went under, water filling his mouth, dragging him down. Strong hands seized his collar. The bandit hauled him back onto the bank, coughing and gasping. Elias lay there shaking, staring at the sky, convinced he had just died a second time. The bandit knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder until the shaking stopped. "Next time," he said, "you wait for me." Elias nodded. That night, they camped near the tree line. The air was colder here. Elias watched the bandit clean his rifle with methodical care, every movement precise. The firelight caught a long scar across the man's ribs, old and ugly. "You don't run with them anymore," Elias said, surprising himself. The bandit paused. "No, they'll come looking." "Yes." Elias swallowed. "Because of me?" A long beat. "Because of choices." Distant gunfire echoed faintly through the trees. Too far to see, close enough to hear. The bandit stiffened, eyes narrowing. "They're hunting," he said. Elias felt fear curl in his gut. Not for himself, but for the man who had saved him, for reasons Elias still didn't understand. Later, as the fire burned low, Elias drifted in and out of sleep. At one point, he felt something pressed into his hand. He opened his eyes to see the bandit placing his revolver beside him. "In case," the man said. Elias looked at the weapon, then up at him. "You trust me?" The bandit considered this. Then, quietly, "I trust the dog." A weak laugh escaped Elias before he could stop it. The bandit almost smiled. Before dawn, Elias woke to the sound of movement. Shapes shifted beyond the firelight. The dog growled, low in warning. The bandit was already on his feet, rifle raised, body coiled. From the darkness, a voice called out, familiar to the bandit, sharp with menace. "Found you," it said. The bandit didn't look back at Elias. He only said one thing, his voice calm and deadly certain. "Stay behind me." The first shot shattered the quiet like a hammer striking bone. Wood splintered above Elias's head as he dropped instinctively, dragging himself behind a fallen log. The dog barked, frantic, then fell silent at a sharp whistle from the bandit. The fire exploded into sparks as bullets tore through the campsite, shadows leaping wildly across the trees. "3," the bandit muttered. "Maybe 4." Elias's heart slammed against his ribs. His hand shook as he checked the revolver. Loaded. He hadn't fired at another man since the war. He had sworn he never would again. The bandit moved like a ghost, low, fast, precise. He fired once. A scream cut through the trees, then stopped. Another shot followed. Return fire ripped through branches, chewing bark inches from Elias's face. "Stay down," the bandit snapped. But the dog broke cover. A shape lunged from the darkness, grabbing for the dog's scruff. Elias didn't think. He fired. The recoil slammed through his arm. The man fell hard, motionless. Elias stared at what he'd done, breath ragged, ears ringing. Blood pooled into the dirt, black in the low light. The bandit looked back at him just for a second. There was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. "Good shot," he said. That was worse than praise. More men rushed in, shouting now, confident. The bandit retreated uphill, firing in controlled bursts, forcing Elias and the dog to follow. The slope was steep, loose with wet leaves. Elias slipped, pain flaring, and nearly went down. The bandit grabbed him, hauling him upright, then took a bullet meant for Elias. The impact spun him sideways. He hit the ground hard. Elias screamed his name, though he didn't know it yet, and dragged himself toward him. The bandit's breath came shallow and fast, blood soaking through his coat. "Get up," Elias pleaded. The bandit shoved something into Elias's hand. A stick of dynamite. "No," Elias whispered. "Cliff ahead," the bandit said. "Light it. Throw it." Footsteps thundered closer. Laughter followed. The bandit forced himself to his knees, covering Elias with his body as another shot cracked past. Elias struck the fuse with shaking hands. Fire caught. He hurled the dynamite into the dark, just as the bandit pushed him backward. The explosion tore the night apart. Rock and flame surged upward. Screams echoed, then vanished. The ground shook violently, and Elias was thrown hard against stone, the world dissolving into white noise. When he came back to himself, dawn was breaking. Smoke drifted lazily through the trees. The forest was eerily still. Elias found the bandit near the cliff's edge, slumped against a boulder. Alive, but barely. The wound in his side was deep, bleeding slow and dark. The dog whined, licking the man's hand. Elias tore open his own shirt, pressing it against the wound. His hands were steady now. He didn't recognize himself. "What?" Elias asked, voice breaking. "Why save us?" The bandit's eyes opened slightly. "Because someone once didn't," he murmured. They stayed there until the sun climbed high, until the danger passed. Elias half-carried, half-dragged the bandit down the trail towards civilization, each step burning, each breath earned. For the first time in years, Elias wasn't running away from the past. He was walking toward something, whatever it was, with blood on his hands and purpose in his chest. Behind them, the wilderness swallowed the smoke, the echoes, and the dead. Ahead, the road waited. Morning came quiet, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Elias stopped when the dirt road came into view, a thin ribbon cutting through the trees, leading toward a town he could not yet see but could already feel. Civilization had a weight to it. Laws, questions, no place for men who lived in shadows. The bandit stirred weakly against the rock where Elias had settled him. His skin was pale now, the lines in his face deeper. The dog lay close, pressed against his side, offering warmth without understanding the cost. "There," Elias said softly. "Town's not far." The bandit opened his eyes, following Elias's gaze. He shook his head almost imperceptibly. "No." Elias frowned. "You need a doctor." The bandit gave a tired half-smile. "Doctor comes with a rope." They sat in silence, the truth settling between them. Elias had known this moment was coming, even if he hadn't wanted to admit it. The world didn't make room for men like the one beside him, not even when they did the right thing. Elias reached into his pack and placed food, ammunition, and the last of the water beside the bandit. Then he hesitated, pulled out his compass, and pressed it into the man's hand. "You'll need this more than I will," Elias said. The bandit closed his fingers around it. "You won't last long in town." Elias looked down at the dog, then back toward the road. "I will this time." The bandit nodded once. "Good." He struggled to his feet, wincing but refusing help. For a moment, Elias thought he might say his name, but instead, he crouched and rested a hand on the dog's head. The dog licked his fingers, tail thumping slowly. "Take care of him," the bandit said. Elias swallowed hard. "I will." The bandit stepped backward into the trees, then turned and walked away, his shape fading into the wilderness that had claimed him long before Elias ever met him. He didn't look back. Elias stood there for a long time. When he finally turned toward the road, the sun was higher, warm on his face. Each step hurt, but it was a good kind of pain, the kind that reminded him he was still alive. The dog walked beside him, steady and loyal, a silent promise with every footfall. As the town came into view, Elias felt the past loosen its grip just a little. He carried scars now, visible and hidden, but he carried something else too. Choice, responsibility, the knowledge that mercy could come from the most unexpected hands. Somewhere behind him, a man with no name and too much blood on his past walked alone into the wild. Somewhere ahead, a future waited that Elias no longer feared. And sometimes, when the wind shifted just right, he thought he could hear a voice carried through the trees, reminding him of a simple truth. Survival is not about who pulls the trigger. It's about who stays. If this story moved you, if you felt the weight of the choices, the silence between the gunshots, and the bond that save a life, take a moment to show your support. Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful frontier stories of survival, sacrifice, and unexpected redemption. Because out on the edge of the world, where law fades and humanity is tested, every story still matters.